This video is brought to you by BetUS Sportsbook and Casino.
I can't believe I'm saying this, but there actually is a surprising Brandon Aiyuk update, even if it is not necessarily a total update. I'll explain. Plus, what can we learn from the 49ers' initial 53-man roster? And did Steve Young put Trent Williams on notice? What is good, everybody? Welcome to another Gold Standard podcast. I'm Rob Stats Guerrera. He is Grant Cohn. Grant, how are you? I haven't seen you in a few weeks because of training camp.
It's really nice to not be on, a train down to the South Bay right now. I've been doing the early morning commute with the rest of the corporate, people in the world. And not that I look down on them. I just like living a parallel life. And it's nice to be at home at 9 o'clock on a freaking Wednesday talking to you like old times. It's great.
There you go. All right. We're going to get into a really weird thing that Mike Garafolo said at NFL Network this morning, which caught me by surprise. We'll get into the Niners 53-man roster, plus Steve Young kind of laying down the law with two of the 49ers' biggest stars, which is sort of interesting. Let's start with what Mike Garafolo said on NFL Network, because I was just, checking Twitter this morning, going through, and all of a sudden I hear Mike Garafolo say this about Brandon Aiyuk.
They get into the practice schedule this week and they're going to practice this afternoon. And sort of the understanding was that at this point he would practice. So we're going to have to see if he's on the field this afternoon with the San Francisco 49ers.
No.
But again, no closer to an extension or a trade there than we were the last couple of weeks.
Understanding that he would return to the practice field. For who? For what?
Yeah. What is he not saying? Let's read between the lines. Okay. Can we do like irresponsible speculation time? That's a segment of ours. It's not even that irresponsible, but we're going to do that. The Niners said, we will freaking fine you. You are no longer hurt. They even said that the other day, like, hey, well, he's not hurt anymore. So we had to go to the game. You're not hurt anymore. If you don't practice, we know you're here, so you won't get fined, but you got to be out there. So, does this mean clearly it doesn't mean they're closer to something being resolved, as Garafolo said, but the Niners are leaning on him. You're under contract, sir. We will fine you, sir. He's like, okay, I don't want that fine.
Well, it's interesting, right? Because, there was sort of a, hey, Brandon's not going to hold out. He's going to hold in so he doesn't get fined. And the Niners were like, all right, we'll let you get by with this back injury. But everybody knows it's not a back injury. And now the Niners are like, hey, first of all, like the season starts in 10 days? Like so we're not going to let you mess around anymore. We've tried to work this thing out. Now we're going to start using the other things in our toolbox that we have, one of which is the fines. And so maybe that's what they're going to start doing. Do you think he'll be on the practice field today?
It sounds like Garafolo thinks he'll be on the practice field today, which means that either the Niners think so or his agent thinks so or both.
Right.
I would have to think that probably yes, 55% yes, but I don't know. I mean, maybe that means he's out there running around. Maybe that means he's suited up. Maybe that means he's not suited up. I mean, I would imagine he's in the facility today, but I'd love to know like what. I don't know, man. This is incredible. And John Lynch talks like a half hour before practice starts, so he's probably going to explain what we're going to see. That'll be interesting.
Yeah, that's going to be interesting too. Shanahan speaks and then Lynch speaks. They're not speaking together, which why not just have them talk together? You're going to ask questions about the 53-man roster anyway. Like we're really going to have one of these guys get up, whatever. Okay. But he's going to give us the no update thing. Any updates, John? No updates. Why not, John? Like, how can there be no change?
And here's how they'll frame it too. Yeah, Brandon's going to start practicing this week. No big deal. It's been the plan. He's on the roster. He's not hurt.
Yeah.
It's been the plan. Like what? This isn't news. Why are you guys all tweeting? Why are you guys all typing? This is no big deal. This is what it's like, yeah, sure, dude. Okay. But I still feel like it's a big game of chicken because there could be a couple of fines the next few days. But the big question is like, will they force him to play on the 5th-year option if they don't come to an agreement? And if that's the case, will he sit out a game, 2, 3? Like, that's the question. And I don't think the Niners know yet. I don't think they I think they want to tell themselves like, oh, Brandon's just immature and he's being emotional. And he didn't want to go to practice. Didn't Mayoko say that? He didn't want to go to training camp anyway. Like, once this is all over, he'll cave and see and like listen to reason. They're hoping.
And I'm like, wait a minute. It's one thing for Trent Williams to not want to go to training camp. He's 35 years old. He's going to the Hall of Fame. Like, okay, we get it. Brandon Aiyuk, like, who the hell do you think you are? You don't need training camp? Get the hell out of here. I couldn't believe that when Mayoko said it.
And again, that could be his theory or the 49ers theory filtered through him. But maybe that's not really the case. I think the 49ers are a little perplexed by Brandon Aiyuk. He seems like a little bit of an enigma. I don't think they know where he's coming from.
I think deep down, the Niners think he ain't going to miss games. He clearly wants to be here because he would have accepted a trade somewhere if he wanted to be.
Or he doesn't want fines.
And that may be it too. I mean, it's one thing. If you're not happy playing on $14.5 million, you're certainly not going to be happy losing some of that $14.5 million for fines due to a holdout.
Right. And it's like, if you're going to practice today to avoid getting fined, then you might play week 1 to avoid getting fined.
And maybe the 49ers are pushing their chips into the table, and that's the bet that they're making. And okay,
like Trent Williams has all this money in the bank where he can be like, find me as much as you freaking want. Brandon doesn't seem to be acting that way.
Right. And so we'll see. It'll be interesting to see. We'll get a little answer if he's back out there on the practice field. Ali said, thank you for the super chat, says Aiyuk to Pittsburgh for Freiermuth and draft picks. The Niners do only have 2 tight ends on the roster right now, Grant. It's just George Kittle and Jake Tonjes, your buddy.
Can I say that I got tipped off on that? I was trying to make it seem like I just had a bright idea, but someone DM'd me and said I heard. He's like, don't tell the source, so I can't say who said it. But I got tipped off on the Jake Tonjes thing. I should have called the agent and really gotten the scoop myself, but sorry.
Jake Tonjes doing it.
Hopefully he stays on the team for more than a day. So far, he's still on it.
By the way, you mentioned Trent Williams. We got this update from Josina Anderson. Hearing Trent Williams wants to be paid, like the very important piece he is. Another league source added this morning, San Francisco's between a rock and a hard place because Trent's not playing around. Something may have to give unless you're allowing for big adjustments next season. So, yeah, like, I think Trent Williams is in full F around and find out mode. Like, he's like, I'm not dying to put my body through that for another year unless you're going to pay me what I'm worth. And if you're not, I'm good. And the 49ers really can't afford to play chicken with Trent Williams because Jalen Moore stinks.
Yeah. I have a point I want to make. I just want to look at Trent Williams' contract real quick. So he has no guaranteed money on it. But hold on. Here's my point. And I think this is a good one. He had no guaranteed money on the contract last year.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that there is something to be said for something weird about this year. Last year, they were galvanized. None of these issues cropped up. People, I'm not going to say kept their mouth shut, but they were focused on a goal, a team goal, and they were like actively sacrificing whatever grievances they had. It wasn't about that. And they went to the Super Bowl and they freaking lost in a very painful, emotional way. And like now this year, it's all about like, I'm not doing that anymore. I need an adjustment. And it's like 4 or 5 players on the team. I think that is definitely the, if you were explaining the offseason to someone who hadn't been following the 49ers, that's pretty much the overarching context of what's going on. It's weird. And then you have Steve Young coming in, who's like not part of this culture. He won championships. He never went to a Super Bowl and experienced that defeat. And he's like kind of, I don't know, perplexed isn't even strong enough. Like he's offended and kind of disgusted by this behavior.
So that's the difference. Like Steve Young said on KMBR, we'll play it for you in a second. Basically like, hey, you got to understand what you're trying to get done in Super Bowl window and all that stuff. I think what happened was last year, exactly like you said, everybody was like, you know what? We're all pulling in the same direction. I want XYZ, but it's more important we're going for the Super Bowl. And they got to the Super Bowl and it paid off and they didn't win the Super Bowl. And now this year are like, guys are like, hey, I did that already. I sacrificed for the team already. Now it's time for the team to take care of me because I took care of them last year. I think that is exactly it. I'm not saying they can't win the Super Bowl, but that's not the best vibe to start the year.
Yeah, it's like, don't ask what I can do for the team. Ask what the team can do for me. Like, wait. Like that is not the attitude that a Super Bowl championship team has on the way up the mountain. And I think it's key for Steve Young to point that out. It's like Steve is sort of I don't know what his role is in 49ers world, but he's almost the king of it. Like, Joe isn't interested. They traded him to Kansas City. He still has a little resentment. Steve retired. He went out on his sword with the 49ers, and he's very protective of this franchise. He likes to talk. He talks about them every week on KNBR. And it's like, if he were the quarterback of this team, he would use his platform to say, what are we doing? This is our window. And it would carry weight in a way that I don't think Brock can't do it. Kyle doesn't have it in him. This is very much like I'm one of the greatest players of all time. Trent, you're great, but I'm a top 10 quarterback of all time. And you respect me. And it's like, I don't know. I grew up as a major Steve Young fan. I was a Niner fan once upon a time. And like, when he was the quarterback, Terrell Owens wasn't even T.O. He was just Terrell Owens, the good guy who tried hard. You know what I mean? Like, sure. There's a certain amount of gravitas that kind of leader has on a team, and an effect that the Niners could use right now. And I'm not saying Brock needs to step up. It's got to be organic, and you really have to be Steve Young. He's not.
Brock can't do it. Yeah, he doesn't have the pelts on the wall, so to speak. No. If he was a 7-time Pro Bowler and that kind of thing, maybe. The guy that can do it is Trent, but Trent's the one that's holding out, because Trent is the only guy right now that you can guarantee walks in first ballot Hall of Famer. Like, nobody else on the team has that. Even though Bosa looks good and Kittle looks good and McCaffrey, nobody else is guaranteed first ballot Hall of Fame lock right now.
How many quarterbacks in the NFL could talk like that right now? Mahomes, and that's it? I don't even think Josh Allen could get away with it. Like, what have you done?
Rodgers, maybe,
although everyone kind of looks at him as a kook these days, and no one seems to like him. And Lamar Jackson, I don't think could do it. Joe Burrow for sure could. I mean, he might try. I don't know, man. I fell in love with Steve Young all over again. It's my favorite player of all time. And the thing that was cool about Steve, it wasn't just the fact that he was one of the most accurate quarterbacks, one of the most mobile quarterbacks. Like, there was this level of seriousness and professionalism that, like, Peyton Manning had, Tom Brady had, but like very few quarterbacks all time had it. I wouldn't even say Brett Favre had it. He was a little bit of a knucklehead. You know, he would just go rogue, or he wasn't particularly, I mean, we know what Brett Favre's all about, but Steve was serious.
Let's take a listen to Steve Young on KNBR talking about the Trent Williams situation.
The window never closes, and it's not going to close on us, but it'll narrow. It'll narrow significantly next year. So if the window's open as it's going to be for some time right now, everybody needs to be on board. And that's why Trent, I understand. You're the best tackle in the game. I get it. No one doesn't say it to you. No one doesn't appreciate it. Is this... when did he get his contract? 18 months ago? When was that?
Yeah, this was like the last year of his guaranteed
so like
portion.
You've set the market. I think he set the market, and I think Jed and everybody's willing to do that because he's the best tackle in the league. And then now you're going to come back and say, no, I want to set it again because there's another $8 million collectively that I can go get, and I'm on my last contract, and I'm getting old. It's like, bro, do you not see what we're trying to get done here? And that, look, it doesn't mean that Jed should keep that money. Doesn't mean that, like, I get it. It's all contextual to your original question. And so I think that the noise that Trent has made, which luckily Brandon's covered him a little bit, I don't know. When you're the best in the league, you've been here for a while, you're older, you're more mature. There's a way to do this that doesn't
know better.
Now we're still here. And I don't, so look, Brandon's caused his own grief in some ways. I'm sure the 49ers own their part of it, but Trent's, created some grief as well.
What I love about it too, he's talking directly to Trent. And when you hear it, it's almost like you could picture him in the middle of the locker room, 28 years old, looking at each player on the team like, guys, we're starting now. We're going up the mountain now, and I'm leading you. Like, God, I love that. Love that.
I love the fact that, like, Steve Young really cares. He really wants this team to win another championship. He's not like, hey, I want to be the last 49ers quarterback to win a ring. Like, he wants them to win like I want them to win. That's awesome. But it's also really easy for him to say, hey, Trent Williams, stop caring about $8 million. Like,
that's true. I don't know that Steve gave back a lot of money. I mean, didn't he get wasn't he like the richest contract ever? Didn't he go to the USFL for money? I mean, he did that, right?
He went to the USFL. He got a lot of money.
It's always tricky to talk about other people's money, but I'm still just from a pure, it'd be nice if Brock could say something like, you know what, this offseason is just not going off on the right foot. And we need to focus. Say something, man, because basically his attitude the whole offseason has been like, hey, I trust the front office. I'm just going to keep my head down, do what I do. It's like, Yeah, and I think that's what you would say at 24 before you've gotten paid, because you need to get paid too. But in a couple of years, I think we would expect, if he were getting paid $55 million a year, he'd have to say something, I think.
That's the only sort of ammo in Brock's belt is he could say, look, nobody's more underpaid on this team than me. I'm not worried about it. We're moving forward. Now, the only difference is the Niners literally cannot pay him more money. So it's not like he could have held out and is choosing not to. That by rule, they can't pay him more money. So it kind of undercuts that message a little bit.
It is kind of funny, too, like the idea that Brock should come out publicly and say something about Trent Williams or Brandon Aiyuk not getting enough money. It's like he's playing for minimum wage. Why is Brock going to be the one who's this is ridiculous? Trent and Brandon are not being fairly compensated. I'm good over here making $19.95 an hour, but they need more money.
Ninth Wonder Comics says football is an extremely dangerous game. Players should always put themselves in their pockets first. Super Bowl rings can't feed your family. Players first. That's why I don't begrudge the players for trying to get
That wasn't their attitude last year, though.
Whose attitude?
The Niners. They didn't have this attitude. This year's attitude. This is the Super Bowl hangover attitude. Get mine.
I sacrificed already. Now I want mine. And like, hey, we're willing to climb the mountain again, but you already got your year from me.
You got to pay me.
Yeah.
Oh, the price just went up. Funny.
Yesterday's price is not today.
And it's like all these players are like fighting to say like, I'm the most important player on the team. No, I'm the most important player on the team. Like that's not the hallmark of a tight-knit team right now. Yikes.
They could be though. Like, right? Like let's say today John Lynch gets up in front of the media and says, before you guys ask, Brandon is signed, Trent signed, they'll be here by the end of the week. Then you're like, okay.
Oh, okay, John. I wasn't familiar with your game. Wow, that's very impressive.
Right. Like now they're both back for week one. They've got a week to practice to hopefully, so they can contribute early. All of a sudden, everybody can focus on this 2024 draft class, which looks like it could be their strongest in a few years already.
They'll hit their stride in October or November, go on a run like they do every year. Yeah, I mean, we've seen that for sure.
They could fix this. That's the crazy part. And it's just, we're stuck in this day after day cycle of waiting. It's terrible.
Okay, so when do you think Aiyuk, do you think he gets extended? I know it's unfair. Yes, you said yes.
I think so now, yes. I think it'll be right before the season. But even if he doesn't, I don't think he's going to miss games. I think he's playing.
Do you think the Niners will sweeten their offer with like 3 or 4 days before the season starts? Or do you think Aiyuk will just accept what has been on the table for the last 2 weeks?
The Niners will change the offer and Aiyuk's team will spin it so that they have sweetened it when really they just like moved money around. But Aiyuk's team will spin it as, hey, they up the offer.
They capitulated. We got that adjustment on the 4th year that we wanted. Yep. Cool. Fine. I think like if that's what happens, then we could look at this as like a more publicized version of what happened with Bosa last year. Like Bosa did the same thing. We just didn't get daily updates from people like, oh, Bosa's upset. Bosa might want to go to Miami. It's like it was just all behind closed doors and eventually got worked out. We have no idea how it might have gotten even more contentious. We just don't know.
I don't think so because Bosa's not taking it personally. Like the Bosas know how to handle their business. And so
I would have to agree. My
money, like Aiyuk said publicly, he's hurt by this. So like he's emotional about it. I think Bosa was just like, nope, I know
agree.
And I'm waiting.
That's a great point. And I think there's something that we should mention. It seems very personal between Aiyuk and Kyle in particular. And I think that it's likely that over the course of the last 4 years, Kyle said something to Brandon. And Brandon probably said something to Kyle privately that knowing those two guys, they won't forget. Just knowing them, I feel like they probably have gotten in each other's face a couple of times privately, I'm guessing, and said some things that you can't take back. And I guess that like that hasn't happened with Kyle and Bosa or Kyle and Debo. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm not sure. I'm guessing that those two have exchanged some words that they both remember. And it just seems like, you know what I'm saying? Like when you have a fight with a girlfriend or something and it just goes too far, you say something that you just can't take back and it kind of messes up the relationship. Like you always remember that they said that about you to your face. It's like, do you You don't like me. You don't respect me, do you? Like that kind of stuff. I feel like there's a little bit of that between them.
For the record, if you told me I got to get in the face of one 49er and the three options were Debo, Bosa, and Aiyuk, I'm getting in the face of Brandon Aiyuk, okay? I'm not stepping to Debo Samuel or Nick Bosa. That is not happening. Josh Wyatt, YouTube channel member, says 49ers should announce all trades are off the table, and they have an offer to BA. He doesn't sign by week 1. He's deciding to play on the option. They could do that. They can't literally force Brandon Aiyuk to play. If he doesn't want to play, he's not going out on the field. So they can't like force him to do it. All they can do is pull the offers.
Well, what I think is going to be interesting. Let's say the Niners force him to practice and he practices, and he doesn't want to take fines by missing games. He's not just going to all of a sudden say, "Oh, well, I tried. Well, let's get back to playing football." Like he's going to make the Niners uncomfortable in some new way. And I'm really curious to see what that is. And again, I don't think the Niners need this distraction. I don't think the 5th-year option is really an option. I think it's either extension or trade. I think they threaten the 5th-year option, but I don't think they really want that distraction. I think it's a big one. And it's like, I can't even anticipate what Brandon would do. He's creative.
Think about this, right? Like, so, okay, Brandon's going to play on the 5th-year option. Yay, everything. Okay, we're all good. Week 1 against the Jets. Brandon Aiyuk has 2 targets. 49ers lose.
Mm-hmm.
Check Instagram. Boop. Maybe you should have thrown to me more. Maybe you should have thrown to 11 more. Why wasn't I in the game plan? Like he could needle them all season long. He could make himself a distraction if he wants to do that. I think the 49ers are betting he's not that guy, though.
Oh, I think he might be that guy. I would fully expect him not only to just put something on Instagram, but also in the post-game press conference. Everyone's going to go up to him.
Yep.
We're not going to leave him alone. There'll be a freaking crowd around him. And knowing Brandon, he won't be the most diplomatic. He may not be Terrell Owens, but I don't think he's going to be like, "Yeah, I'm just here for the team. I love blocking. I love running clear out routes. This is fun, man. I love this. It's great."
He could, you know what he'll do? He could say, "Go watch the tape. I was open. I can't throw myself the ball."
He'll say something like that.
Just like,
and that's all it takes. That's all it takes.
Yeah, it could get dicey. Speaker, YouTube channel member. By the way, if you want to become a YouTube channel member, please do. It's less than $3 a month. You get priority comment response, custom emojis, membership badges. I just updated all the emojis, so please consider it if you want to support the channel. You know what Brandon can do? I just thought of it to really piss off Kyle, because this is what I do for a living, is really piss off Kyle. Is just after these games, especially if they lose, Brandon can just criticize Kyle. Well, I don't blame Brock. This is the play calling. Right. And Kyle's never had that. A player who was just openly saying, Jimmy almost got there, but Jimmy had no standing left at that point. It's like, dude, you're a backup. But if Brandon starts saying it and he's still on the team and Kyle's like, I need him and I have to put up with him talking crap about me, it's like, that's a very weak position. So that's something Brandon could do. And here's what happens with that, right? So BA says that. Then what happens is you go to Kittle. Hey, BA said the game plan was messed up. Do you agree? Now everybody's got to take sides. And absolutely. Are you on Kyle's side or are you on Brandon's side? Yeah, that's a pain. And Kyle, say what you want about Kyle. He has done an excellent job of keeping this locker room together, even when they stunk in 2017 and 2018. Everybody was on board and pulling in the same direction. This is the first time in the Shanahan era where that might not be the case. Speaker says, I back players in these things, pro-labor. What I want to know is what's up with the front office not planning for this at all with a 36-year-old left tackle? Yeah, Grant, it couldn't have taken him by surprise that Trent Williams wants more guaranteed money. It seems like this whole offseason has taken the Niners by surprise. Like the last few years, ever since 2019, the whole culture of the team has been one step away from the summit of Mount Everest. We're so close. We're all going to do this together and go to Canton together. And then it all switched this year. And it seemed like Kyle and John are like, what are you? And Steve Young, like, what? We're this close. What are you talking about? And they just didn't prepare for this dramatic culture shift. By the way, Sean Turner says, Rob's not stepping to Joan in payroll. I'm 5'10", 140 pounds. It's probably not in my best interest to step to anybody, quite frankly. Josh Dowling says, do you think with CeeDee Lamb's contract now, Aiyuk wants something outlandish that the Niners will never pay? I don't think the CeeDee Lamb contract should have changed anything really for the Aiyuk market. I think the market has been set. My only point is, look at A.J. Brown's deal that he signed this offseason He's already been surpassed multiple times. So it just goes to show why you're better off getting the contract done early, even if you might think you're overpaying a little bit. You pay to get that done because very quickly that contract will look better and better as time goes by and other guys sign.
I know Niner fans are like over here just hoping and praying that Aiyuk gets extended and Trent Williams gets renegotiated and then Purdy gets extended next year, but they're already $39 million over the cap for next year. I'm not sure that the answer is just to give these players every penny that they're asking for and put your head in the sand and hope it all works out in the future. I'm not sure that's probably why this is taking so long. The Niners are smart enough. Parag has a spreadsheet. He can look down the line 2-3 years and say, boy, this isn't going to work. We really didn't budget for this. This is rough. This quarterback's going to be really expensive. And then so is this left tackle. And then so is this wide receiver. And then that wide receiver. And then that defensive end. It's like, damn. I think if they trade Brandon Aiyuk, it's going to be painful. But down the line, you may look at it as being like, it was the right move. And really the only issue is they probably should have done it sooner.
I think they're going to trade Debo next year. Although now that this whole thing has been drawn out, I guess maybe that's up in the air.
You think Kyle's going to trade his best friend? I don't know about that.
Josh Wyatt says, who cares? Twitter's not a real place. If BA acts unprofessional, he's gone in a year and good riddance. The 5th-year option was collectively bargained. And it's funny. The fans have turned on Aiyuk completely. It went from, hey, pay this guy, and to now it's, hey, we tried to pay you. Hey, we tried to trade you. You haven't done anything. So now he has completely lost the fan base up and until he signs or reports.
Yeah. And I think that's probably why you don't go rogue and do these things on your own on social media. Just say nothing. Don't show up. Say nothing. Do what Nick Bosa did because he didn't lose the fan base. Everyone was like, yeah, it's fine. We get it. It'll take care of itself. No one really clutched their pearls with Nick at any point last offseason.
Well, because what's your argument? He was coming off a defensive player of the year. He had like 18 and a half sacks.
Yeah, but on August 28th last year or September 3rd, people were like, oh my God, he's not signed. What's going to happen? So I was like, yeah, it'll be there.
Yeah.
And he was. This
Nick
is different.
Says, Grant's hoping that the Niners trade Brandon Aiyuk so they can criticize them for falling off. Ulterior motive.
Obviously, got me. But what's nice is I can always criticize the Niners no matter what. Like, they could do anything. I got them one way or another. It's no problem.
You don't, but it's not like you need the help with the content. Like, the Niners are going to provide you with, you don't need the trade because it's like, oh no, there's nothing else to talk about with the team. Yes, there is.
True. Also, I don't love just being negative just to get the Niners. I like talking about real issues as opposed to cheerleading. But when there's someone to praise or someone new, that's a real issue. I like talking about that too. I've always been very positive about Jordan Mason, and it's nice to see him finally come into his own. I'm really excited about Jacob Cowing. I could go on and on about the things I admire and like about this team, but I think it's fun to actually talk about issues. That's the way I think about it.
And with all this stuff going on with the Aiyuk thing, and maybe he's going to practice, maybe he's not going to practice. I did something. I'm going to admit, I know a lot of people aren't going to like it, Grant. I went to the BetUS website. I took the Jets and the 4 points. I have to say, I did. I don't like the vibes. I think that there's a good chance the Niners could lose this game, even if everybody had been there and playing the whole time. And just with everything going on, I have to say, I did it. I went to the BetUS website. We all know you're going to bet. You might as well use BetUS. They're offering 125% deposit match on your first 3 deposits up to $2,000. They have 24/7 personalized service, 365 days a year, and you can get 10% back on your net losses twice a year. I took the Jets.
I think it's fair. There's something, I guess the vibe I'm getting from the Niners, if we're going to talk vibes, is look, we know Greenlaw won't be there week 1. Talanoa may not be ready week 1. Aiyuk and Trent may not be ready week 1. We're not going to be ourselves week 1, but we should be ourselves week 4, week 5. We know we can sort of flip a switch, go on a run, and be the best team in the league. So I wouldn't be surprised if they just give away some games early in the season and chalk it up to us our full squad isn't really out there yet. We lost to the Jets, but we had some extenuating circumstances in the offseason. We kind of beat ourselves. Just wait till we get our full squad out there. Yeah, we may start the season 2-2, 2-3. They started the season 2-4 2 years ago and went to the NFC Championship game. So I don't think they're really fazed by September football, which is why I would probably pick either the Jets to cover or the under. I like the under on that one. Like, I just don't think it's going to be a 24-20 game. That's that 44 and a 40. I could see that being like a 2017 game.
Interesting.
Yeah.
The unders, that's an interesting one.
Yeah.
What I have said this year is this year's not about style points. Style points was last year. This year, just get into the playoffs by hook or by crook and win the damn games and win the Super Bowl. It is not about looking good. The Patriots at the end of during their dynasty used to say, look, the regular season is like the preseason for us. The real season begins once we make the playoffs, and that's when we get into it. And I think the 49ers are taking the same approach this year. A lot of people have said that training camp didn't have the kind of same juice that other training camps have had. And I think the 49ers, they know what it takes to climb the mountain. They know they can do it, but they also know, damn, the season is long, man. I don't need to be coming out of the gates week 1 1,000 miles an hour. We'll get there. Also, you could argue that the Niners peaked early last year. If we're just taking they were great. They had the 5-0 start. And then they weren't as good down. I mean, they were not playing their best football in the divisional game, in the NFC Championship game, in the Super Bowl. Meanwhile, the Chiefs, who you have to measure yourself against because they're the gold standard in this era, started off slow. They didn't look great. Were they the 3rd seed? They lost to the freaking Raiders in December, and then all of a sudden went on this run, flipped a switch, showed their pedigree, and played well enough to get it done for the 2nd year in a row. So maybe the Niners are thinking okay, all right, let's pace ourselves. Let's not worry so much about getting off to that hot start because it didn't guarantee anything for us last year. Let's make sure we're playing our best in February. Steve Young said it during that radio interview. He said the Niners were not the same team after that Ravens game on Christmas, that they weren't the same team. And I kind of agree with them. They did not look like the stomp you in the mouth, eat you up, chew you up, and spit you out team that we saw earlier in the year. It's hard to beat because their culture is not just that they're the best, but they're disrespectful. They're the bullies. They come out and it's like a fight. It's almost like they're coming down and Bruce Buffer's announcing them in the red corner. And they have Kyle Shanahan. They run up the score on you. They talk crap about the Cowboys and the Eagles. And when you get bullied like that on national television, it's hard to have that same swag. It's kind of like Mike Tyson getting knocked out by Buster Douglas. It's I'm not the same bully anymore. Chris Badal says, pick up Tim Patrick, 6'4", tight end Donald Parham, 6'8". Well, I don't think they're going to be picking up Donald Parham because the Niners are bringing back Eric Saubert to the 53-man roster in a move described as roster gymnastics, according to Matt Mayoko. Saubert is expected to be tight end 2 behind starter George Kittle. So a little bit of a mystery solved there. I figured there would be some move coming at tight end, and now we know what it is. So who's they putting Ambry Thomas on IR, or they haven't said how they're making that? I would assume it's either Ambry or John Feliciano. So the reason the Niners didn't put either one of those guys on IR yesterday is because if they did, they would have had to decide, are you using one of the 8 exemptions to bring them back on the team? They would have had to decide right away. By waiting, now they can put them on IR and they don't have to make that decision yet. So it made sense to wait. Yeah. Nice. Well, at least Jake Tonjes is still on the team because that's all that matters at this point. I had an irrational affinity for Robert, what was his name? Dwelly? I forgot his name. Ross Dwelly. Ross. I called him Robert. It's funny how you can forget about someone so quickly. Robert Dwelly. Well, now it's Jake Tonjes. Dwelly. Yeah. Sorry, Robert. Generic name. Very nice. Says, Aiyuk has only lost the fans who don't realize what a POS Kyle is. Kyle has failed at the human level by building a cliquish locker room. It does. That was a very angry and kind of a mean thing, generic name, but there's a lot of truth to that. Calling him a POS, that's a lot, but some players love him and some players clearly don't appreciate his style of leadership. I think that's definitely true. But I think that's true in all locker rooms. I don't think every locker room, all 53 guys are like, everything's great. I have no problems with anybody. True. But I do think that Kyle plays favorites. And I think that Aiyuk isn't one of his favorites. And I think we're seeing that play out. Yeah, I mean, I think it's pretty clear to this point. he's never been one of Kyle's favorites. Kyle put him
No.
in the doghouse. Aiyuk had a great rookie year. Kyle puts him in the doghouse. I just think that, and Aiyuk battled his way out of it. But Aiyuk said, when they had they had a kumbaya come to Jesus meeting, and Aiyuk said he was on me all the time, and it had to basically be explained to me that he wasn't picking on me. So like we got an early indication that Aiyuk takes things personally. So
what you're saying, Brandon, is that it felt like you were being picked on,
Right.
and then Kyle said, "I'm not picking on you." But someone could say, "Hey, man, I'm not picking on you." But it's like that doesn't change the way I feel, the way it feels every day. Hey, man, when I do this and it makes you feel awful, just know that I love you. He wouldn't even have said that. So yeah, I don't know. It's like, when you go to work and you like your boss is like treating you like crap, and you're like, "Hey, it feels like you're treating me like crap." And he's like, "I assure you, I treat everyone the same way." I'm like, no. I'm in this office every day. I see how you treat Jenny and Bill and Jake. You love them. What are you talking about? You treat me the same. Like, no. I could see why you would feel that, Grant. But let me assure you, I treat everyone the same. Like, you're just saying that to cover your own ass. You have to say that as a boss. Anyway.
Right. He's not going to be like, "Oh, I'm definitely picking on you." Unless it's
this is definitely workplace discrimination. You should file a suit with the union.
By the way, Adam Schefter tweeted that Tracy Walker is signing with the Niners practice squad, and Barrows quote tweeted that and said this could mean that Talanoa Hufanga, who hasn't rejoined practice since his ACL injury, might not be ready to play against the Jets. That's not exactly breaking news. I think it's interesting that they activated him from the PUP list. So the Niners are telling you that Hufanga is going to be back before week 4.
Hoping this could be, "Hey, Talanoa, we don't really know where Trent and Brandon, we need you." He's like, "Okay, well, I'll, no promises about taking one day at a time, but I'll grind really hard." It's like, you never know if these players and teams are really on the same page, but yeah, clearly the Niners are hoping sooner than later. And it would seem irresponsible to play him against the Jets when he still hasn't practiced this offseason. What would he have today? Let's see if he's practicing today. We'll see. Fully.
Oh, by the way, who is a free agent after the year? Talanoa Hufanga in a contract. Kind of has a little motivation to try and get back out there as soon as possible because he wants to get paid from somebody, and I don't think it's going to be the Niners.
But he also doesn't want to go out there and show like, "Oh, I'm just not the same player because I rushed back and I lost a step." Like, he needs to go out there and show that he is the same player.
Very true. Speaking of Russian people out there, I obviously have no proof or sources or anything, but it seems really, irresponsible speculation. It seems really weird to me that all of a sudden, on the day after Mike Silver goes on the radio and says Ricky Pearsall has a shoulder injury that the 49ers knew about before they drafted him, and then all of a sudden Pearsall's back on the practice field the next day, but he's still wearing the blue non-contact jersey.
Yeah. It's like, if he's going to be wearing that blue non-contact jersey, at some point you're going to have to like take it off and let him compete in every single facet of, if he's not ready for one-on-ones, and he still hasn't done that yet, then he's not ready for a game. You can't say that he's ready for 85% of practice and 100% of the game. I'm sorry. We haven't seen him get tackled yet. Right. I think the Niners are being, to me, like, why haven't they just shut him down? He's had multiple re-aggravations. It doesn't seem like rest is going to fix this entirely. Maybe just give him the surgery and say, "Sorry, this is a redshirt year," as opposed to like forcing him to go out and practice and maybe re-injure it again. I don't see the upside.
That's what it feels like to me. It feels like at some point we are going to see the Ricky Pearsall needs shoulder surgery, out for the year. Hey, we tried to fix this. We know what the injury is, right? Took forever to figure out what the injury is. It's a partially dislocated shoulder. And when that happens, it can become easier and easier for it to become dislocated again. So that's why, like, I just can't imagine he can go through a whole season and not have it get dislocated at some point if he's out there getting tackled. Now, to be fair, he never missed a game in college and he had shoulder injuries in college, but it just seems likely that you're not getting a full season or anything close to it from Ricky Pearsall.
Yeah, let's review the facts. He did this in college and his junior year, didn't miss any time. Did it again. So that was 2 years ago. Then it happens again in OTAs. That wasn't the first time, it was the second time. And they shut him down. He has about a month and a half to rest it. Then he does it again. This time it was just blocking. We don't even know how he did it the first time. This time he was blocking in a practice. They shut him down for 20 days. Half the time, last time it was 60 days or 45. Shut him down for 20 days and put him back out there, and you're like keeping your fingers crossed. I hope he doesn't re-aggravate it. Like, you haven't even seen him get tackled yet. I don't know. It's your first round pick. Well, don't you want to be a little more careful?
It seems to me like I don't know what they're doing, but it doesn't make sense. I will say that. It seems like we are headed toward a shoulder surgery. I hope I'm wrong. But that's just me sort of reading the tea leaves. Generic name is back. You can't have favorites in a locker room, Grant. High school coaches know that. POS is accurate when young men's careers are ruined by his pathetic favoritism. See Trey Lance. I don't want to get into the Trey Lance thing.
Well, I will say this. It does seem to me that the reason Aiyuk wants to go to Pittsburgh doesn't seem to be about money. Doesn't seem to be about the quarterback or the offense or anything that has to do with scheme or finances. It has to do with Mike Tomlin, who is a very specific style of coach, and he couldn't be further any more different than Kyle Shanahan, I'd have to say. He's like the exact opposite of Kyle Shanahan, and that seems to be the big draw for Brandon Aiyuk.
But if he really wanted to go, he could be there right now. So, like, does he really want to go to Pittsburgh? That's the thing. You can't put that out there and be liking tweets about Mike Tomlin and all this crap when the Niners have reached an agreement with the Steelers and you've reached an agreement on a contract and it's still not done.
I think the reason he's not in Pittsburgh right now is the Niners are trying to extend him, and they're going to give it the old college try for another week or two. That's the way I interpret it. I think, my prediction here, I've been pretty consistent the last few weeks. I'm usually wrong, but my prediction is that a few days before the season, they're going to trade him to Pittsburgh and say, look, we didn't want to do this. We tried. We took it up to the very end, but Brandon is just so unreasonable. He just wouldn't negotiate with us. He was just an absolute nightmare to work with. And so now he's in Pittsburgh, and yeah, we lost the deal, but it's not our fault. We did everything we could until the very final second to try to improve the situation for the 49ers. And this is the best we could do. And blame Brandon. Hate him.
It's a perfect way to spin it from a team perspective, isn't it? And
because they almost traded him a couple of weeks ago, and Niner fans were going to lose their mind. They're like, are you kidding me? We're trading him right now for nothing. It's like, oh, but if you try really hard and you leak, we offered him 30 and we're finally caving, and this guy is just, what does he want? Then Niner fans are like, you know what? Screw Brandon.
Yep.
Trade him.
Yeah, I hate to say it, but that is exactly how the Niners will spin it if that does happen. We got some waiver claims being made. Grant, Cody Schrader going to the Rams. NFC West rival. Niners kept Patrick Taylor over him. Look, I'm not going to get bent out of shape about this, right? I remember people freaking out when the Niners didn't keep Manning, and it was like, how could they let this guy go to the Cardinals? Oh, no. I don't even know if Manning is in the NFL anymore. So great. Cody Schrader's on the Rams. Yippee.
You just know it pissed. It's just so petty. It's like Sean McVay taking Kyle's. Oh, you wanted Cody? You thought you were going to slide? You're going to stash him on your practice squad? Well, have a great day, Kyle. I mean, they're like friends, but they're very competitive, and it just feels like Bobby Turner gave him the sign off. Bobby Turner put effort into him. I respect Bobby Turner. I used to work with Bobby Turner. You know what? That guy be perfect for me. And maybe he won't make the team. Maybe ultimately they'll cut him in a couple weeks and be back with the Niners. But God, I love it.
Right. It's like, hey, he thought enough of this guy to at least have them go out and sign him. Let me take a look.
Thanks for scouting him, developing him. He fits perfectly in my system. Thank you, Kyle.
Cody Schrader went to the Rams. Sam Womack went to the Colts. Jared Kingston was claimed by the Panthers.
Interesting.
49ers have not claimed anyone.
Interesting. I thought it would be the other way around. I thought none of their players would get claimed, and they would claim like a D end or a D end or two. So I guess they still want to act like they have a great team with hella depth. Maybe Sam Womack to the Colts. Why? More gay.
If you're the Colts, like
what have you seen? I'm so sorry. I don't get that.
What have you seen? Did you see that play in the Raiders game where you literally watched the guy catch the ball, go right past him into the end zone?
I don't get it.
I was hoping Jared Kingston would make it back to the practice squad. I thought maybe there might be something that they could develop him for a little bit, but not going to happen.
Boy, what a waste. I mean, you draft him in round 6 and he doesn't make your team, and then he goes to the Panthers. Like, it seemed like PFF thought he was pretty good. You got rid of Jarrett Kingston so you could keep Sam Okwanu? Well, he better be on your team the whole freaking season then.
Generic name. Thanks again. Debo got a personal Kyle extension when he doesn't block, get in shape, or catch a ball. But you're right. Aiyuk has no reason to be ticked.
That's so true. God, that's so true.
All the stuff they rag on Brandon Aiyuk for, Debo has done, and worse. And yet Debo is the favored son. He's never in the doghouse. He's can't get open against man coverage. He's out of shape every other year. None of it seems to matter. But God forbid Brandon Aiyuk doesn't execute perfectly on the 3rd rep in practice and he's in the doghouse.
It's like I'm trying to take this back to a corporate, and I'm not a corporate guy. I've only worked in an office a little bit, but it's almost like Debo's the kind of guy who's never really doing his job. He's rarely in his cubicle. Where's Debo? He's in the boss's cubicle. They're talking about golf. They're talking about fantasy football. They're talking about poker, whatever that. They have so many things they like to talk about. Meanwhile, Brandon's over there, employee of the month, yet again, not really super social. And he's like, oh, he got the raise. I'm a problem. Like, that's kind of how it feels. And I don't see how you change that relationship. It's like 4 years in.
Right. And the thing is, like, I'm not necessarily super ticked that Kyle lets Debo slide on some of the things because Debo can do some incredible things. Like, okay, that's fine. There are always those guys in the locker room, right? Like, Jimmy Johnson famously cut somebody on the Cowboys during a meeting because he fell asleep. And they said, well, what would you do if Troy Aikman was asleep in a meeting? And he said, I'd wake him up and continue the meeting. Like, that's the reality of the situation. But why can't you also make those exceptions for Aiyuk? Because he's also a very good player. Like, I don't understand why one guy gets a pass and the other guy not only doesn't get a pass, but gets hammered, really.
Well, really, I think as an offensive coordinator, maybe you can play favorites like that. You shouldn't. But as a head coach, I think you can't. And if you are, that's something that you need to, like, sort of be honest with yourself about and try to do better with, because that's not really leadership. But what's interesting is, a couple of weeks ago, they had the preseason game at home. They sat most of the starters. Kyle didn't call plays. Debo didn't play. And if you watched on TV, there was like, what did Kyle do all game? He wasn't calling plays. He was chopping it up with Debo like the whole game. You noticed that, right?
I noticed the not calling play thing. I talked about it with Vish. To me, there's more meat on that bone. There is no way Kyle Shanahan decided out of the goodness of his heart. And by the way, thanks, Golden Red 89, new YouTube channel member. There's no way Kyle Shanahan decided out of the goodness of his heart, now I'm just going to let one of my other coaches call plays, when he didn't do that for anybody else. If he was going to do that for anybody, he would have done it for Mike McDaniel. He didn't do it for Mike McDaniel, probably in part because he wanted to keep McDaniel a secret. Now, all of a sudden, he's doing it for Clay Kubiak or Clint Kubiak or whatever the hell Kubiak is left on the 49ers.
Do you think his dad, Mike Shanahan, called Kyle and said, you need to do this favor for the Kubiaks? Or do you think Jed went to Kyle and was like, look, man, my family has done our analysis of the Super Bowl loss, and we have determined that you're a great coach, except for these like in-game situations that you mess up. So we would sort of like you to take more ownership of those parts of being a head coach. And, you're in year 8 now. We'd like to see you delegate certain things. Is that, I don't know, is that possible? Or the Yorks not talk to Kyle like that? I don't know.
Well, first of all, if the Yorks did that, it would be stupid, because that's the biggest thing that Kyle Shanahan brings to the team is his play calling ability. But
yeah, it's not his leadership.
I think that it wouldn't shock me at all if he was doing a favor to the Kubiaks, because he got his start there, and like whatever, like the NFL is full of favor for favor things. That is not unique to Kyle Shanahan or the 49ers. So that wouldn't shock me at all. I just think it's more, I'm not saying it's like a big sinister plot. I'm just saying it's more than Kyle. I just thought this would be a good time to do it.
I got another theory. His brother last year, Clint Kubiak, was the pass game coordinator, which is a pretty important title, because that means you're like one step away from being an offensive coordinator. And then, of course, he got hired by the Saints. He's their offensive coordinator right now. So the Niners put him in like a great position to get hired. Then that position becomes open this year. And what does Kyle do? He doesn't promote Clay Kubiak to that role for whatever reason. In fact, I don't know if they have a pass game coordinator right now. They brought in Mick Lombardi, who was an offensive That's what they did. Instead of promoting Clay, they brought in Mick Lombardi, who's about Clay's age. And he was offensive coordinator with the Rams the last couple of years with Josh McDaniels. So maybe it's like, look, Gary Kubiak, sorry, I didn't promote Clay. Well, I don't think he's quite ready, but I'll let him call plays in a preseason game. How about that? He can call plays in a preseason game that doesn't matter, and I'll make a big deal about it, and then he might get some looks as an offensive coordinator. But I'm sorry, I'm not going to give him a raise, and I'm not going to make him the pass game coordinator. I don't think he's ready.
Well, according to the 49ers website, he is listed as the passing game specialist.
Oh, then I take it back. I don't know. I take it all back. Since when? Clay?
I just dialed it up. I just have it open right now. It's I don't know. I can't keep track.
Pass game. Well, just forget all that. What I just said. Clint Kubiak. What was he called last year? Does he have the same title that Clint had last year? Let me see.
I don't know.
Clint last year was the passing game coordinator for the 49ers in 2023. You're telling me that Clay Kubiak is a pass game specialist? See, that's different. That's different. It's not quite the same. And the Niners made that distinction on purpose. Offensive passing game specialist. So it's not like he's the guy. There could be multiple passing game specialists. Mick Lombardi could be a passing game specialist. Leonard Hankerson. I don't know.
Yeah,
Anyway.
I have no idea. I can't. Some of the stuff, the politics with that stuff just drives me nuts. Daza0187, YouTube channel member, says, fans also seem to forget what Debo did in the offseason when he was up for a contract, yet BA is the malcontent. Yeah, right. Like I said, everything people get mad about with Brandon Aiyuk, Debo Samuel has done, and maybe more, and nobody cares.
That Debo standoff feels like 10 years ago.
Yeah, it does.
I can barely remember it.
It does feel like that. I mean, he's in the club doing this when people are saying come back to the 49ers.
Yeah. It's true.
Then
he requested a trade pretty early on.
Mm-hmm. You take a couple good screen passes to the house against the Eagles. All of a sudden, people forget.
Pretty much. Or Brandon Aiyuk puts himself in the spotlight for the same thing, and people just focus on Brandon.
I mean, we've never had an Aiyuk game where he just took over, though. We've had multiple games where Debo has taken over. That's the
true.
difference, really.
I would have to agree.
Like that Eagles game, he took over. Like it was just get the ball to Debo. I'll break a tackle. I'll run 50 yards for a touchdown. I'll take a screen pass 50 yards for a touchdown. Like those don't happen for Brandon Aiyuk. He's a different kind of player, and that's not meant to knock BA.
No, it's not. BA would say that he's a true wide receiver. I think he said that he's had that insinuated this year on the pivot. He's the true wide receiver on the team. He's the route runner. And that's true. I mean, Debo isn't really running a lot of routes, but he seems like he can take over games in ways that Brandon hasn't been able to.
By the way, Eric Branch just tweeted, Tanner Mordecai is going to sign with the 49ers practice squad. Great.
I was thinking the Rams might sign him just to be jerks, But they already got Jimmy Garoppolo, so they're good.
Yeah. Generic name is back. Thank you, generic name. It's not what he does well. He's an objectively bad situational play caller. He's great at script building. I totally disagree with that.
He is definitely great at scripting plays, but like 3rd and 4 in the fourth quarter, not going for it on 4th down and those critical. It's like, yeah, I'd have to say
management he's bad at, but situational play caller, I think he's a great situational play caller. Like the play he dialed up in overtime, Juwan Jennings is wide ass open. It's not his fault it wasn't completed. He was wide open. The play on 3rd down.
Yeah, the protection sucked though.
Right at the 2-minute warning, Brandon Aiyuk is wide open in the middle of the field on the slant. And Brock Purdy said he's the first read on that play. Brock didn't throw it to him. So like, I don't think Kyle's a bad situational play caller. I really don't. In the Super Bowl against the Chiefs,
But it's not enough to just have a guy open. You also have to be able to block it. And if guys are just getting manhandled at the point of attack, then yeah, your offensive line sucks. But also, like, there are free rushers on those plays, and so that's a design flaw. Or
Spencer Burford admitted he went rogue on the play, so that
right. But it's like, well, I mean, again, like if you watch that, like he should have blocked Chris Jones, I guess. But like if he had blocked Chris Jones, then the safety would have had like a straight line unblocked to the quarterback. So it wasn't really the play didn't really work. They might have been able to pull it off in spite of its bad protection, but like, yeah, getting guys open, the route combination, that's huge. And he's great at that. But also you got to be able to block it to make it real, to make it work.
Just because it's a free rusher doesn't mean that somebody did something wrong. There's free rushers all the time. It's how do you account for the free rusher that determines
Right.
whether.
And Kyle wants to set the protection with the center as opposed to the quarterback. And we had Chris Forster explain why, because he feels like it makes the quarterback has the most difficult position, and it makes a tough position even more difficult to give him that mental responsibility. But we've seen so many quarterbacks handle that. And even Chris Forster was like, the problem with when the center does it is that he doesn't have the same viewpoint. His head is lower and he's looking at ankles and socks and knees. And sometimes he misses a guy. And he was like, it was surprising. Like, Jake Brendel missed a ton of assignments last year. It's like, yeah, maybe you should let Brock do it, man. He seems like he's pretty smart. But anyway, we just went on a tangent.
Kyle's official position on that, he told Tim Kawakami this offseason, is that he never bans quarterbacks from doing it. If they want to do it, he says they're free to do it. And he has no problem with it. He thinks that it makes their job harder, which, to be fair, it does. It's additional responsibility. But what I think sort of the unspoken part of that is Kyle is really saying, like, I'm never going to help you do that. If you want to do it on your own, great, but I'm not going to spend time preparing you to do that because my system takes it off your plate. So you're sort of on your own to do that as a quarterback, which that's something I think that if you wanted to, you could take issue with.
He also said, like, my quarterbacks could call their own plays if they wanted to. It's like, no, they couldn't. Shut up. Respectfully. Respectfully. No, they couldn't. Stop. And he was like, I just don't think they would want to. It's such a miserable thing to do. Like, you love doing this. This is what you were born to do. Don't tell me that this is miserable and you dread it. You love it.
How exactly? What is the respectful version of shut up, Grant?
I'm sorry. I take it back. Kyle, I love you.
Respectfully.
Hush.
Like, just because you put respectfully in the front of it doesn't mean
that doesn't make it respectful. Right. No, you're right. Sorry.
Generic name is back. Debo isn't running a lot of routes. Debo isn't running a lot, period. Look, Generic, you seem to have a real issue with Debo Samuel. I'm happy to keep taking your money. But yeah.
Debo showed up this year, though. He ran a lot this offseason. Let's see if it translates. But like, he was the guy trying to, like, it was Aiyuk last year. Aiyuk was the guy in the offseason. He was the MVP, set the tone, set the standard every day. And I think it was clear either Kyle told Debo or Debo figured it out, like, I need to be that guy this year. If Brandon's going to hold out for more money and possibly push me off the team, then let me take that role from him. And I think he did a good job. He didn't fight anyone.
Sean Turner says Generic is your burner. If that's
caught red-handed.
If that's true, thanks for the money, dude. I appreciate it.
You're welcome, man. I'm just over here giving you money.
Yeah, I'll take it. Hell. Last thing, I don't know if you saw this, Grant. And when I first saw it, I was like, that's interesting. The 49ers announced yesterday that they are putting $200 million worth of renovations into Levi's Stadium because of the Super Bowl and the World Cup in 2026. Now, if you're wondering, that includes better Wi-Fi at Levi's,
yes.
LED lighting system. They're going to upgrade some suites, which, yay, hooray. Frictionless, quote unquote, concession stands, which I think just means like you get to pay on your phone instead of having to pay. They're putting $200 million worth of upgrades into the Super Bowl.
Nice.
And so my first thought was maybe this is why Jed is being stingy with the Trent Williams and the Brandon Aiyuk contracts. But I texted a few people and I was told no, that one doesn't really have anything to do with the other.
Well, that's great. I don't really know where the money's going, though. It's still Levi's Stadium. You know what they should do? They should like pick it up and move it to San Francisco. That would be one hell of an upgrade. I would love that upgrade. What an upgrade that would be. Nothing against Santa Clara. It's just not. Here's the thing about Levi's Stadium. The Niners are an iconic franchise, not just in football. Mm-hmm. And Candlestick was a dump, but like, so is Fenway. So was the old Yankee Stadium. Like, it was iconic. And when games were tight in playoff games, like, people there would feel like, oh my God, we're in the site where the catch happened. Is this history again? There were iconic moments there. It's nothing iconic about Levi's Stadium. They never should have moved out of San Francisco. They were an original San Francisco franchise. They didn't move from New York like the Giants. It was created in San Francisco. And so, yeah, just throw a couple more $100 million in there and just slide it back up the peninsula. That'd be money.
Just pick it up and drop it down in San Francisco. That would be hilarious if they did that and announced it as an upgrade.
That'd be great. They did that in Oakland. There's this like little dive bar called the Kingfish, and it used to be on this one street, and they just decided to pick it up and move it across the street and add a backyard to it. I'm thinking if they can do it, the Niners can do it.
That happened to my grandparents' house. They were they were at where they were, and the city was building a road, and they wanted to build a road right through the house. They literally came and picked up the house, the whole thing, and they moved it. Because my grandmother said, like, do I need to take down my dishes? And what they told her was, you don't have to worry about it, because if one dish falls, the whole house is going to fall over.
Wow. That's incredible. I think the Niners can definitely pull this off. That's a better use of money than like LED lights.
LED lights for the field.
Because it's still not San Francisco.
What these owners are doing to prepare for the World Cup and the way they're putting grass in the stadiums for the World Cup, but they won't do it for their own freaking players, is so just disgusting and just smarmy and slimy. It pisses me off, frankly.
It's so interesting. It's like, oh my God, the World Cup is coming. We have to get the best grass. Okay, they're gone. Get that freaking turf back out here for our football players who we don't really care. I mean,
right. Just your employees. We don't care about you. You don't make as much money, apparently, as the World Cup. Generic Name says, I have an issue with how you and the rest of the media are treating Aiyuk. Someone has to stand up and try to explain the team's spin when the media is parroting it.
It's interesting, too. Like, Steve Young didn't have an issue with Brandon. He was like, I kind of get it with Brandon. He's sort of like up for a contract, and this is sort of like how it goes. But like Trent, well, this is totally unnecessary from Trent. Where is this coming? Oh, because you're old? Oh, because it just occurred to you, like, I don't like this contract anymore. You love that freaking contract. You have 3 years left on it. What are you talking about? Brandon, like, from Generic Name's perspective, I understand it. It's just that, I mean, you can't deny that he said he did a bunch of stuff publicly that he didn't necessarily have to do, that didn't necessarily help him. And it's understandable why fans would be turned off. I don't know.
I criticize 49ers media as much as anybody. I don't really think that the media are treating Aiyuk poorly. I don't agree with that. I know that you wanted me to get some sources. I saw that tweet from you, Grant.
No, yeah, I guess I did say that, but I guess I misinterpreted what you were saying. But like, you often be like, hey man, how come no one breaks his story? It's like, dude, have you tried calling agents and being like, hey, I'm so-and-so and I cover the team for them, and I know you're probably going to give this to Adam Schefter or Ian Rappaport, but I think you should give it to me. And let me give you 10 reasons why. Hello? It's not as easy as you think. But I would look, the numbers are like literally like public information. All you have to go is the NFLPA website, and there's an agent database. Anyone can do this, and you just search by the agent. If you want to know who's like what player is who the agent is for a certain player, it's on Spot Track. So anyone, not just Rob, anyone can be a reporter. Ricky probably is doing this, just calling up agents. It's just they don't really call you back. And
here's the question, though: is that being done, or is it just, hey, NFL Network gets a story, so I'm not even going to try?
Well, you saw. I'm not trying. Can I just be the first to say I don't want to do that? I don't want to do that. But like Barrows and Branch and Mayoko they all have breaking news today. Like they're grinding right now, calling agents being like, did Tanner Mordecai make the team? Did Tanner? And it's like, yeah, I respect the grind, but it's like, that's just news that's going to come out. Why don't you go out and get some real news about Brandon Aiyuk if you're going to be a freaking newsbreaker? Because that's stuff that isn't necessarily ever going to see the light of day. This is like, oh, you just beat, the team by an hour. Great. I'm glad that it worked, but like, I don't really consider that.
There's a difference between a 5-minute heads up on a transaction that's going to be public and a story like what came out last year with the Eagles about how basically they all hated each other.
Yes. Yeah. Like, how come we have to wait for Seth Wickersham to get that kind of information? But yeah, I mean, the Niners have been pretty good at controlling the media and controlling the narrative since Jed York has been there. It's got to be one of the things he spends the most time and effort on, is making sure that the message coming out of Santa Clara is sort of uniform and approved by the organization. And then there's us.
Oh, God, it's so frustrating. All right. I think you've done this show for long enough. I want to give another shout out to BetUS. Again, go to check out BetUS. You can click the link in the description of this episode. They are home to the fastest payouts in the industry. They have 125% sign-up bonus up to $2,000 on your first 3 deposits. You know you're going to place bets on the NFL anyway. I said a bet I made today, I'm going to make plenty more. I'm probably going to lose most of those, unfortunately. But if you're going to make bets anyway, you might as well do it with BetUS. They sponsor my show. I know they sponsor your show, Grant. We are big fans of BetUS. So if you're going to bet your money, please do it with them. And again, you can use the link in the description of the show.
True. And I just want to say before I go, no, I don't call agents all the time per se, but I did predict that the Niners would put Jake Tonjes on their 53-man roster. So am I a newsbreaker? That's up to you.
Breaking news from Grant Cohn.
Jake Tonjes on the team.
By the way, Grant, I didn't tell you this, but I may have something special in the works for your favorite 49ers running back. And you know who it is.
Jordan Mason?
No, the one whose name you always sing.
Oh, Garendo. Oh, I want to say one more thing before we go. Can the Niners sign freaking Frank Gore Jr. off waivers? How about that? I would love that. He was great in preseason.
He's back with the Bills.
What? He cleared waivers? I'm really upset about that.
I know. And you just lost Cody Schrader, right? Why not get Frank Gore Jr.? We need a legacy player on this team. Damn it!
You kept Patrick Taylor Jr. over Frank Gore Jr.? Are you kidding? Of the two juniors, I want Frank Gore Jr.
You kept the wrong junior.
You kept the wrong junior. Come on.
Oh, man.
Who's Patrick Taylor Sr.? Is he a Hall of Fame running back? No.
That's what I said yesterday. I don't know who Patrick Taylor Jr.'s father is, but I know who Frank Gore Jr.'s father is. He's a
big missed opportunity. I'm so mad.
Anyway, I'll let you go to the facility, Grant. I know we got a big media day with Kyle and John talking, but thank you everybody for joining us. Please rate, review, and follow the Gold Standard Podcast Network wherever you get your audio podcasts. Like and subscribe to both YouTube channels, the Gold Standard and the Grant Cohn YouTube channel. Special shout out again to BetUS, who sponsored this show. We really do appreciate it. Grant, I hope you have a hell of a day the rest of the day.
You too, man. This was fun.